Hey there, history buffs! Welcome to It Really Happened. Today, we're heading to a place you might have seen a lot in the news, the Middle East. This region often grabs headlines due to its many battles and ongoing unrest. But have you ever wondered why there are so many wars there? What exactly triggers all these conflicts? In this video, we're going to dive deep into the rich and complex history behind the wars in the Middle East. We'll explore the major events and the reasons behind them to help you understand what's really going on. So, buckle up and let's start unraveling some of the big stories from this fascinating part of the world. The Middle East is a super interesting place where history, religion, and geography all come together. It's known as the cradle of civilization because it's where some of the oldest cultures and empires in the world started. Pretty cool, right? But there's also another side to it. The Middle East is famous for being a place where a lot of conflicts happen. From way back in ancient times up to today, it seems like there's always been some kind of battle going on there. So, why is this? Why does this region see so many wars? Let's take a closer look. To understand the conflicts in the Middle East, we have to go way back. Thousands of years ago, the Middle East was a battleground for powerful empires trying to control its valuable land and resources. For instance, the Egyptians and the Hittites fought the Battle of Kadesh around 1274 BC, one of the earliest battles in history. They were fighting over land in what is now Syria. Then, from 499 to 449 BC, the Persians had several wars with the Greek city-states during the Greco-Persian Wars as Persia tried to expand its empire to the west. And the Romans often fought the Parthians from about the 1st century BC to the 3rd century AD over control of areas like Mesopotamia, leading to many battles. These ancient conflicts helped shape the region and set the stage for more wars in the future. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the Middle East became even more important when oil was discovered. Oil made the region rich, but it also made it a target for powerful countries looking to control this valuable resource. Countries like Britain, France, and the United States all had an interest in the Middle East, and this only added fuel to the fire of future conflicts. One major cause of modern conflicts in the Middle East can be traced back to World War I. After the war, Britain and France made a secret deal called the Sykes Picot Agreement. They divided the Middle East into new countries without really considering the people who lived there. Suddenly, tribes, ethnic groups, and religious communities were split apart or forced to live together under new governments. This division created deep tensions and would later lead to wars. Countries like Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon were all shaped by these new artificial borders, which have been a source of conflict ever since. Another big cause of conflict in the Middle East is its diversity. The region is home to many different religious and ethnic groups. For example, Sunnis and Shiites, two branches of Islam, have been in conflict for centuries. Then, you have the Kurds, a large ethnic group spread across several countries, who have been fighting for their own independent state. Add in Jews, Christians, and other minority groups, and you have a recipe for tension. When these groups fight for power, or when outside forces back one group over another, wars often follow. In more recent times, modern issues like politics, economics, and foreign intervention have sparked wars in the Middle East. Many governments in the region are authoritarian, meaning they have one person or party in power for a long time. This often leads to protests or uprisings when people feel they have no voice. On top of that, economic problems like unemployment and poverty make life hard for many people, which can lead to further unrest. Foreign countries also play a big role in Middle Eastern conflicts. Countries like the United States, Russia, and Iran get involved, often by selling weapons or supporting one side in a war. Sometimes these foreign interests make conflicts even worse, turning local problems into global crises. Let's look at some real-world examples of wars in the Middle East to better understand how they start. The Iranian Revolution of 1979. In Iran, a revolution in 1979 changed everything. The country had been ruled by a king or shah who was supported by the United States. But many people in Iran were unhappy with his rule, and a revolution led by Ayatollah Khomeini established a new religious government. This revolution didn't just affect Iran, it sent shockwaves across the Middle East, creating new enemies and alliances. The Gulf Wars. One of the most well-known conflicts in the Middle East is the Gulf War, but this conflict actually happened in two major stages. The first Gulf War took place in 1990 when Iraq, led by President Saddam Hussein, invaded its smaller, oil-rich neighbor Kuwait. Saddam wanted to control Kuwait's vast oil reserves, and he also claimed that Kuwait was historically part of Iraq. The world, especially countries reliant on oil, reacted quickly. In response, the United States formed a coalition of nations to liberate Kuwait, and by early 1991, Iraq was forced to withdraw. This war was relatively short, but it left behind a lot of unresolved tension. This tension eventually led to the Second Gulf War, also known as the Iraq War in 2003. After the First Gulf War, Saddam Hussein remained in power, but Iraq was placed under strict international sanctions. These sanctions, imposed by the United Nations, severely restricted Iraq's ability to trade and rebuild its economy, causing widespread poverty and suffering among its people. However, Saddam's government maintained its power by force, and the tension between Iraq and the rest of the world never really went away. The build-up to the Second Gulf War was a mix of political, economic, and security concerns. The U.S. government, led by President George W. Bush, accused Saddam Hussein of possessing weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, which are nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons that could cause massive harm. The Bush administration claimed that these weapons posed a serious threat, not just to Iraq's neighbors, but to the whole world, especially in the wake of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks in the United States. Even though Iraq denied having these weapons, the U.S. and its allies weren't convinced. Another reason for the invasion was the belief that Saddam Hussein had ties to terrorist groups, including Al-Qaeda, the group responsible for the 9/11 attacks. While this claim has since been widely debated and questioned, at the time, it added to the urgency of confronting Saddam's regime. The U.S. also hoped to promote democracy in Iraq and throughout the Middle East, believing that removing a dictator like Saddam could help bring stability to the region. In March 2003, the U.S. led a coalition of countries, including the United Kingdom and Australia, in an invasion of Iraq. The goal was to topple Saddam Hussein's regime and eliminate the supposed threat of WMDs. Within weeks, Saddam was overthrown, and he eventually went into hiding before being captured later that year. But the aftermath of the invasion wasn't as simple as anticipated. No stockpiles of WMDs were ever found, leading to a lot of criticism and questions about whether the war was truly necessary. Additionally, the removal of Saddam Hussein left Iraq without a stable government, creating a power vacuum. This vacuum led to widespread violence, as different groups fought for control of the country. Shiites, Sunnis, and Kurds, all with different visions for Iraq's future, clashed. And terrorist groups like ISIS, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, rose to power in the chaos. The Second Gulf War and its aftermath not only changed Iraq, but also had ripple effects throughout the Middle East. It destabilized the region, created new conflicts, and left lasting scars on Iraq's population, as well as on the countries that participated in the war. Even today, the legacy of the Iraq War continues to shape political and military decisions in the region. The Syrian Civil War. Perhaps one of the most tragic examples is the ongoing Syrian Civil War. In 2011, protests against Syria's president, Bashar al-Assad, led to a violent crackdown by the government. Soon, the protests turned into a full-blown civil war. Many different groups, including Kurdish forces, Islamic extremists, and the Syrian government, have been fighting for control of the country. The war has also drawn in other countries like the United States, Russia, and Turkey, each supporting different sides. The result has been years of destruction and millions of people forced to flee their homes. Wars in the Middle East don't just happen overnight. They're often the result of long-standing issues like colonialism, ethnic and religious differences, and outside interference. These small problems can quickly grow into bigger conflicts, drawing in countries from around the world. To truly understand these wars, we have to look at the complex history and the many layers of politics, culture, and geography involved. And that wraps up our deep dive into the wars in the Middle East. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss our future content. We'd love to hear from you. Are there other regions or conflicts you'd like us to explore? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Remember, the more we understand the complexities behind global events, the closer we get to uncovering the truth. So keep asking questions, stay informed, and keep seeking the truth behind the headlines. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.